The door didn't creak. That was the first thing I noticed, because I had memorized every sound this place made, no drag of metal on warped hinges, no groan that warned me to flatten myself into obedience, no familiar rhythm of bootsteps belonging to someone who owned my fear, just a soft pneumatic sigh like a lung exhaling, like the room itself was surprised. Light spilled in, clean and white, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I flinched back against the wall on instinct, wrists tucked tight to my chest, fingers curled to protect the bruised places that still remembered hands. Then I saw the shape in the doorway, not tall like the overseer's, not crowned in lacquered armor, no ceremonial lash coiled at the hip. The figure was broad-shouldered, compact, wrapped in dull gray plates that looked more functional than proud. The helmet wasn't shaped like any I'd seen. Its visor was a single dark band, unreadable. A weapon hung across their front, but it wasn't raised. They stepped in slowly like they were entering a chapel, and then the voice came filtered, calm, strange in its gentleness. "Hey," it said, "you're safe. I'm going to come closer, okay? You don't have to move." My throat tried to close around the air, my stomach twisted like it was preparing for pain. Safe. People here use that word the way they use chains, to make you stop fighting. I pressed my spine harder into the wall until it hurt, because pain was predictable. Pain didn't lie. The soldier, because that's what they were, even if I didn't know what kind, shifted their stance and lowered themselves, knees bending, lowering their height. A gesture so human it punched a hole in my disbelief. They set their weapon down, not tossed, placed, carefully like it was something breakable. Then they lifted both hands, empty palms, fingers spread. "I'm Staff Sergeant Mara Vance," the voice said. "Human Expeditionary Forces, we're clearing this facility. You're not in trouble. I'm not here to hurt you." Human, I had heard the word in whispers, the way prisoners talked about storms or myths. Humans were supposed to be far away, a nuisance. A rumor, a species that fought like cornered animals and didn't surrender properly. The overseer spit the name like it tasted bad. I stared at the helmet, tried to see eyes through the visor, tried to find the angle of cruelty. Mara Vance didn't move closer. She waited. Waiting was unfamiliar. My lips cracked when I tried to speak. The sound that came out wasn't language, just a tiny broken noise. Mara's head dipped a fraction like she'd heard it anyway. "Okay," she said softly. "No talking, that's fine, I'm going to get you out. But first I need to make sure you're not hurt in a way that moving you will make worse." Her wrist flicked and a small light blinked on her forearm. Some kind of device. Medical. I recognized the intent before the tool. My hands shook. The instinct to recoil fought with something else, something that wanted desperately to believe, because the door had opened, and no one had shouted, no one had thrown me to the floor, no one had called me property. The door had opened, and the figure in the doorway had said my fear didn't belong to them. Mara leaned slightly to the side, still crouched, and spoke over her shoulder without taking her eyes, if she even had eyes, off me. "Found one," she said, her voice sharpened into professional focus. "Adult female species unknown, conscious, non-hostile, looks malnourished, possible fractures." A different voice answered, tinny through a comm. "Copy, Vance, keep her calm, doc is inbound, you have security." Mara glanced once toward the corridor. "Yeah, 2 stacks down, this wing is clear." She looked back to me. "Someone's coming to help," she said. "I'm going to stay right here with you." I didn't understand how she could say it so simply. Like staying was a default, like my terror wasn't inconvenient. My gaze dropped to the floor, to the thin mat that had been my world, to the drain, to the stains that never quite faded no matter how much I scrubbed them with my bare hands. 2 years. I didn't measure time by days, I measured it by procedures. The first months were loud, new rules, new punishments, a constant reshaping of my body into something that fit their expectations. After that it became quieter, which was worse. Quiet meant they'd learned exactly how much I could endure before I broke. Quiet meant efficiency. My name had been taken early. Names made you human, made you real. Here, real things caused problems. I'd been assigned a designation, C-17. I'd learned to answer to it, not because I accepted it, because refusing cost more than it saved. Now with Mara crouched in front of me like I mattered, my mind scrambled for my name the way a drowning person scrambles for a surface. It was there, somewhere, like a song I used to know. Mara's gloved hand reached slowly into a pouch and came out with something small and white. She held it out at arm's length. "It's water," she said. "A pouch. You can drink it, or I can put it down and you can take it when you're ready." The scent hit me before my brain could argue. Clean water, not recycled. Not stale. My throat ached with wanting. Mara set the pouch down near my mat and slid it gently toward me, stopping a safe distance away. Then she went still again. Silence filled the cell, but it was different from the silence I knew. This silence didn't wait to pounce. I stared at the pouch for a long time, too long. Mara didn't rush me. At last I moved inch by inch like an animal testing a trap. I reached out. My fingers brushed the pouch. It didn't bite. I snatched it back to my chest, heart hammering. The first sip made my eyes sting with tears I didn't want. I swallowed too fast and coughed, and the sound echoed off the walls too loud. Mara didn't laugh, she didn't scold, she just said, "Easy, you're doing good, doing good." No one had praised me without a demand attached, and I couldn't remember. Footsteps came down the corridor, several sets, quick and controlled. Mara turned her helmet slightly, tracking them, then angled herself subtly so her body was between the door and me, not blocking my escape, shielding me. A new figure appeared in the doorway, bulkier, carrying a kit. Their helmet was marked with a red cross-like symbol. "Doc," Mara said. The medics stepped in, slowing when they saw me. Their voice was lower, warmer. "Hi," they said. "I'm Lieutenant Sato, medical. I'm going to check you over, okay? No needles unless you say yes. No touching unless you say yes." I froze mid-breath. Unless you say yes. Consent was a concept that had been beaten out of this place. Here bodies were tools, objects, debts, warnings. Sato crouched on the other side of the cell, mirroring Mara's posture, hands visible. "You've been through hell," Sato said, "and there was no pity in it, only recognition. We're going to get you out of it." I hated that my eyes burned. I hated that my body trembled. Weakness was dangerous. But Mara and Sato weren't predators. They were something else, something my instincts didn't have a category for anymore. Sato held up a small scanner. "This just reads heat and heartbeat," they said. "No contact, is that okay?" I didn't know how to answer. My lips parted, my tongue felt like it belonged to someone else. Then, because I didn't have words, I did the smallest thing I could manage. I nodded. Sato's shoulders loosened like they'd been holding tension too. "Okay," they said. "Thank you," the scanner hummed softly. Sato's eyes, real eyes visible through a half-visor, flicked across a display. Dehydration, malnutrition, bruising, old fracture on the left rib that didn't set right, wrist inflammation, signs of repeated trauma. They didn't say it like a report. They said it like a promise of accountability. Mara's hands clenched once, then relaxed. "Can you move?" Sato asked gently. "Are your legs working okay?" I tested my feet. Pins and needles bit up my calves. Standing was something I did rarely because standing invited attention. I tried anyway. My knees buckled and Mara was there instantly, too fast for someone in armor. She didn't grab, she offered an arm like a railing, letting me choose. My fingers closed around her sleeve. The solidity of it startled me, not soft, not cruel, just steady. Sato opened their kit and produced a thermal blanket, silver and thin. "This will be warm," they said. "Can I put it around your shoulders?" I hesitated. Mara's voice came soft again. "You can say no," she reminded me, "and we'll still take you out." I swallowed. My throat hurt. Slowly, I nodded again. The blanket settled around me like a shield. Heat seeped into my skin, and with it something I hadn't felt in a long time, the sensation of being cared for without being claimed. Outside, distant sounds rolled through the facility, muffled booms, shouted commands, the clatter of metal. A battle, maybe. A rescue. Mara and Sato moved like the chaos was background noise, like my survival mattered as much as their mission. Sato looked toward the hallway. "We need extraction. This wing will be reopened by enemy patrol in 10. Mara keyed her comm. "Command, this is Vance. We have a survivor. Request evac route to Med Bay. Also flag this cell evidence." "Copy," Command answered. "Evac inbound, and Vance, good work." Mara didn't sound proud when she replied. She sounded grim. "Yeah," she said, "good work." As if good was not enough, as if she'd found something unforgivable. Sato turned back to me. "We're going to walk," they said. "Slow, Mara will stay with you. If you can't walk, we carry you, your choice." My choice. The words landed like a key turning. I looked at the doorway. For 2 years, that doorway had meant harm. Now it meant unknown. Freedom was a frightening thing when you'd had no practice holding it. I took one step. My foot dragged. My muscles protested. Mara matched my pace, a shadow that didn't threaten. When we reached the threshold, I stopped. The corridor beyond was wider than my cell, lit with emergency strips. There were marks on the walls, scorched lines, impact dents. The air smelled like burnt wiring and something sharper, the metallic tang of battle. A figure hurried past, another armored human carrying a device with blinking lights. They glanced at me and slowed, eyes widening. "Oh my God," they breathed. Mara's head snapped up. The other soldier corrected instantly. "Ma'am," they said, voice steady, "you're safe now." They moved on faster, as if the sight of me was fuel. We walked. Every few meters, a human soldier stood guard at an intersection. They weren't like the overseers. They didn't leer. They didn't angle their bodies to block me. They watched the corners, watched the doors, watched for threats that weren't me. Once I stumbled and made a sound of pain. The nearest guard turned sharply, weapon raising, then saw it was me and lowered it immediately, stepping back to give space. Sorry, they muttered, as if they had done wrong. The facility's geometry shifted, cells to labs to storage. I saw things through open doors that made my stomach twist, restraints, tables, instruments stained and scrubbed, places I'd been taken and returned from emptier each time. My breathing shortened. My vision tunneled. Mara noticed. She always noticed. Hey, she said, leaning closer without touching. You're here, you're with us, count with me, okay? Count, numbers were safe, numbers didn't have teeth. Mara lifted a gloved finger. One, she said. I stared at it, my lips moved. One, Mara's finger became two, two, two. We counted to 10 as we walked. My heartbeat slowed a fraction. The corridor stopped spinning. Sato glanced back, impressed. Good technique, they said to Mara. Mara's voice stayed low. Learned it from someone better than me. We reached an intersection where the ceiling had partially collapsed. Rubble blocked half the passage. A human engineer team was clearing it, moving with frantic efficiency. A tall soldier at the edge of the rubble looked over, then, without being asked, pulled off their helmet. They were young, human, their face was smeared with grime. Their eyes were bright with anger held carefully in check. They placed a hand over their chest and bowed slightly toward me, not deep, not theatrical, just respectful. I'm sorry, they said simply, for what they did to you. The words cracked something inside me, not because they were perfect, but because they were undeserved, an apology offered by someone who hadn't hurt me because they believed pain demanded acknowledgement. My throat tightened. I didn't know how to respond. Mara spoke for me. Later, she said gently to the young soldier, not unkind. Let her breathe. The soldier nodded sharply and turned back to the rubble, jaw clenched. We kept going. At the med bay, the doors were already open. The room smelled like antiseptic and warm air. Humans moved between beds with purposeful speed. Some beds held human soldiers, bloodied but alive. Others held bodies wrapped in sheets. Sato guided me to an empty bed at the far side, away from the busiest lanes. Okay, they said, we're going to do basics first. Fluids, calories, warmth, then scans, then choices. Choices. Mara stood at the foot of the bed like a guard who would rather die than let anything through. Sato offered me a small cup. Electrolytes, they said, sip. I obeyed because obeying was habit, but the difference was this: no one used my obedience against me. Sato checked my pupils with a light, listened to my heart, wrapped a cuff around my arm. Each time they asked, each time they waited for my nod. When they finished, Sato pulled a small patch from their kit. This is a translator interface, they explained. It'll help us understand each other better. It sticks behind your ear. Is that okay? Behind my ear was a place hands had grabbed to drag my head back. I flinched. Mara's posture changed instantly, not aggressive, alert. Sato froze, hands lowering. No problem, they said immediately. We don't have to. We can do gestures. We can go slow. My breath came shallow. The patch glinted between Sato's fingers, a doorway to language, to being heard. I forced myself to swallow. I lifted my hand, shaking, and pointed to my own ear, then made a small circle in the air. A question. Sato's eyes softened. You want to do it yourself, they asked. I nodded hard. Sato set the patch in my palm like it was fragile, like I was. I moved slowly, guided by the faint diagram. My fingers fumbled. The adhesive caught, cool against my skin. I pressed it into place. A tiny vibration tickled my skull. Then suddenly the world sharpened. Words in the room, human words, shifted, aligning with meaning. I could understand them, not perfectly, but enough. Sato exhaled with relief. Good, they said, that's good. I opened my mouth and my voice emerged like something unearthed. I rasped. The words scraped my throat. Tears threatened again, furious and hot. My name, I said, and the translator helped the syllables find shape. My name is Lyra. Mara made a sound, small, almost broken. She looked away for a moment, visor angled down, as if she needed the armor to hide what she felt. Sato smiled gently. Hi, Lyra, they said. I'm glad you're here. Glad, not lucky, not convenient. Here, I gripped the blanket tighter around my shoulders because without it I might float apart. My designation, I said, the bitterness thick, was C-17. Sato's expression hardened. Not anymore, they said. Mara's voice turned cold as space. Not ever again. Sato pulled up a chair and sat so they were at eye level. Lyra, they said, I need to tell you something. What happened here, what they did, it's a crime under every treaty we recognize. We're documenting everything. You don't have to talk about it today. You don't have to talk about it ever if you don't want to, but if you do, we can protect you. We can take down the people responsible. My stomach twisted. The idea of speaking felt like walking back into fire, yet there was another truth. If humans were here, if humans could open doors, maybe they could close the ones that should never have existed. I looked at Mara. Why? I asked, voice thin. Why come? Mara's helmet tilted. For a second, she didn't answer, like she was weighing honesty. Then she reached up and unsealed the helmet with a hiss. She lifted it off. Her face was older than the young soldier's, lined at the eyes, jaw set with stubbornness. A scar cut through one eyebrow. Her hair was cropped short. Her eyes were a plain brown that didn't look away from mine. We intercepted a shipment, she said. Bodies in crates, alive, drugged, labeled like equipment. My skin crawled. Mara's hands clenched on the helmet's rim until her knuckles whitened. We traced it here, she continued. Command said it was high risk, deep territory, political mess. She swallowed and I saw it, the anger, the restraint, the choice. I told them, Mara said quietly, that if we didn't go in, I'd resign on the spot and leak the coordinates to every pirate and rival power in the quadrant just to make sure someone burned this place down. Sato made a low sound. She did. Mara's mouth twitched, humorless. They called my bluff. She leaned forward slightly, voice rough. Lyra, she said, humans have done terrible things in our own history. We know what monsters look like because sometimes we've been them. Her eyes held mine like an oath. That's why when we see this, we don't negotiate with it. My chest hurt, not from injury, from something swelling inside that hadn't had room for years. So I whispered, what now? Sato answered first. Now you heal, they said. Now you eat, now you sleep without fear. Mara's voice layered over it, steady as a wall. And then, she said, if you want, we go back through every door in this facility. We open them all. I stared at her. The human soldier who opened my door without a creak. The idea of other doors, other cells, made my throat tighten with urgency. How many? I asked. How many like me? Mara's face went hard. We don't know yet, she said, but we're finding out. I sat up straighter, dizzy but determined. The blanket slid, revealing the bruises I'd learned to hide. No one recoiled, no one judged. Sato held out a ration bar, soft, high-calorie, easy to digest. Bite-sized, they said. I took it, chewed, swallowed. My body, betrayed so many times, accepted the nourishment like a wary truce. My voice shook. I can help. Sato's brows lifted. You don't have to. I know, I said, and the translator made it clear, strong. That's why it matters. Mara watched me for a long moment, then she nodded once slow. Okay, she said, but on your terms, always. A tremor ran through me, not fear this time, power, small, fragile, real. Outside the med bay, a siren wailed, facility systems failing. The enemy would come, they always came, but the humans didn't look like they were preparing to run. They looked like they were preparing to finish something. Mara stood and resealed her helmet, her face vanishing behind armor again. Before the visor darkened completely, she met my eyes one last time. I'm going to step out, she said. I'll be right outside this door. Nobody gets in unless you say so. I swallowed against a sudden rush of emotion. Sergeant Vance? Yeah. My voice was still rough, but it held. Thank you, I said, for opening it. Mara's visor reflected the med lights like distant stars. Lyra, she said, it should have never been closed. She turned and walked out. The door remained open, not because it was broken, because a human decided it would stay that way. Outro hook. They think the raid ends when the last shot fades. They think the humans will take their rescued assets and leave. But they don't understand what humans do when they find a machine built for cruelty. Next time, Lyra leads Mara back into the depths of the facility, toward a sealed wing marked only with a warning symbol and a single word in an old human language. Archive.